Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week, our first show of the new year, but our times remain the same, coming to you every Sunday at 9 a.m. and 10:35 p.m. We promise to give you the real story behind the big stories, and we hope to deliver again this week with the following topics for my panel today. Sewage spat. Right now, Memphis treats sewage not just for the city, but its suburbs too, including those across the state line. But now, Memphis's sewage systems are at capacity, and from Bartlett to South Haven, that's causing all kinds of problems. Strickland speech. The Memphis mayor and city council sworn in for their new terms, and with it a new proposal to reach those left behind. And TVA's final offer. The TVA goes on offense on the issue of whether it should continue to be Memphis's sole power source, with a series of take it or leave it statements about how much it will or will not sweeten the deal to keep Memphis as its #1 customer. Will this help or hurt the case? My panel to talk about all of this is political consultant and former Memphis City Councilwoman Tawan Stout Mitchell, Sam Hardiman, reporter for the Commercial Appeal, and Local 24 political analyst Otis Sanford. So we'll talk about the sewage spat first, just because we like the alliteration on that one. It is interesting. I think a lot of people don't know. This is one of those things that does literally simmer underground. That Memphis is.
Wow, what a visual!
Simmering in the summertime, for sure. Memphis is basically the toilet bowl for the whole metro area, and now it's having trouble flushing because it's at capacity. And it's been doing it for the suburbs all these many years. It's telling South Haven and Horn Lake, you may have to go somewhere else. We can't afford to keep you, and it's struggling to handle the needs of suburbs like Bartlett, which has a lot of growth needs, but they're having to find all kinds of expensive ways to be able to at least give the okay to some permits for some growth in the area. Sam, you've been covering this story heavily. What is the most interesting aspect of this situation right now to you?
The most interesting aspect of the situation, because it shows how the situation is and is kind of both sides are hardened, is the city of Memphis pretty much went straight to a lawsuit. They went to a federal judge and said, hey, tell us that we can break out of this partnership when it expires in late September of 2023. South Haven and Horn Lake immediately filed back with their own lawsuit saying, no, that's not what our agreement that's lasted for 45 years now says. And so Memphis is drawing a hard line at the state line. It's saying we're not going to subsidize the bedroom communities who have grown, we feel, at our expense. I mean, South Haven, for example, 30 years ago, 1990, had 21,000 people in it. Now it's a city of about 56,000 people.
That's a lot of sewage.
And a lot of sewage, and it really hasn't had to bear the cost of building a waste treatment plant. The city of Memphis is saying, why do we need to continue providing that to you when our population loss and the decrease in our tax base might be due to your growth?
And even though South Haven and Horn Lake have been paying for this service, the consensus seems to be it hasn't been a fair rate. I mean, is there maybe a compromise there? Well, if you double what you're paying us, maybe we can work something out?
The city is saying to the Tennessee suburbs, if you increase what you're paying us, we're going to be flexible with you in building out and continuing to treat your sewage. For Horn Lake and South Haven, there's some flexibility maybe on the timeline if they show to the city of Memphis, hey, we need this amount of time to build the new plant. But the city of Memphis is not going to be, if it has its way, treating South Haven and Horn Lake sewage past 2023.
Otis, I think the city has a point here, especially when it comes to South Haven and Horn Lake.
Well, yes, and certainly I think they have a public relations point in addition to the merits of this case, primarily because you know, you have cities and communities in DeSoto County like South Haven, Horn Lake, Olive Branch. Those residents down there love to bash Memphis and love to belittle Memphis. But now we're talking about their tremendous infrastructure needs. They need Memphis for that. You know, what we have here, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Sam, that Memphis filed its suit for declaratory judgment in Memphis federal court. But DeSoto County filed its sort of countersuit, if you will, in North Mississippi federal court. So you have two different jurisdictions here who are going to be looking at this. I don't know how they resolve that. But yes, I think Memphis has a point here. Memphis has been sort of subsidizing the tremendous growth that's been going on in DeSoto County for the last 30-some years.
I had no idea that was going on.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's been talked about off and on for many years. But you said that Memphis went straight to the lawsuit stage. Well, they did give them notice back in 2018 that they were planning to do this, and they gave them 5 years to deal with this. Well, they can't come up with the infrastructure in 5 years. That's why they are upset about it. So there's a disagreement now about whether that original agreement allowed Memphis to just unilaterally get out of it.
Right, and what I mean by straight to the lawsuit is, yes, throughout 2018, they said, hey, we can't do this. We're going to break apart at the end of our agreement. But instead of, say, waiting until 2021, 2022 to file this lawsuit, Memphis was saying, we want to answer from the courts sooner than later.
Yeah.
You know, what interests me is that for years, people have said on the street that Memphis is subsidizing too many other communities, and it really felt that Memphis was subsidizing the growth of Mississippi. And I was on the council. I had no idea this was a contract. I had no idea this was a contract. So it behooves me to ask the question, how many more contracts do we have that are parallel to supplementing the growth of another community outside of Memphis? Because there is language in the charter that prohibits you from using Memphis assets, its taxes, and its revenue sources for the growth of something else other than that's going to benefit Memphis. And we have done that not only with Mississippi, now we're de-annexing, and some of those communities that we are de-annexing, and I know I'm going into another subject, we saw some profit from. So Memphis cannot continue to subsidize other communities on the backs of poor people. And that's what we've been doing.
Which is in keeping with what Strickland's mantra has been, which is
exactly.
We need to grow
and I give him kudos for finding this out.
And of course, sewage is one of those things. It's like buying tire for a car, at least for city government. You know this. You don't really want to spend a lot of money, and keeping that up, it's incredibly important. It's one of those things you got to do. How is it that it got to this point, that it's at capacity such as it is, that in the case of Fletcher Creek, you can only, if you're going to add to it, which is in Bartlett's situation, well, if you could put in some temporary storage and flush it after midnight when usage is low, it suggests it really is at full capacity. How did it get to this point?
Well, I still say it got to the point, and Sam pointed this out at the beginning. It got to the point just because of the tremendous growth and the expansion that's going on. You know, you
outside of Memphis.
Outside
Everybody's
of Memphis. All of these suburban cities.
Geography is stretching.
Yes,
it's not next to each other.
Horn Lake is much larger now than it was, certainly in the 1970s. And even the suburban Shelby County cities are much larger. And a lot of those folks are former Memphis residents. So that's how it really
they've taken advantage of Memphis. And we've been the good guy, the big anchor. But it's time for the big anchor to flex its muscle and say what's fair to Memphis. Memphis first.
Well, that's what somebody said. Connect said to Memphis first.
And the mayor said so actually in his speech on Wednesday. He said something very similar to what Director Connect has said, which is we can't continue to afford to essentially subsidize Mississippi.
Are there any other issues like the sewage issue floating out there that might need to be addressed as well, that the city's kind of has an undue burden, some would say?
I don't know, like none that come to mind. One of the things, like if you look at economic issues, if you look at the growth of the distribution centers in Marshall County and in DeSoto County, there's millions of square feet, as the Memphis Business Journal routinely points out, under construction, employing thousands of people. When you drive to those industrial centers, you see Shelby County plates. And then those packages are being shipped from the FedEx hub, right, which is a Memphis asset. And so Memphis, by being essentially landlocked and having older industrial stock, it's been cheaper and easier for Mississippi communities to subsidize that overflow and that new growth there. So there is that's another example of...
There's also the issue, a long-running issue, over the aquifer. And again, I don't know how that has... You know, it's still just sort of simmering underground.
Yes, there's lawsuits in that case.
And there's lawsuits in that case, and that's a Mississippi versus Memphis dispute right there that's been going on for a long time.
And I remember when Chamber wanted to be the chamber of the Mid-South?
Well, a regional chamber.
Regional chamber. And that was good if you have regional people paying into the chamber.
Yeah.
It's not good if you just have Memphis in it.
Right. Yep. Well, it's going to be interesting how it all flushes out, shall we say. We'll be right back. Going to talk about Jim Strickland's big speech as he was sworn in for a second term in just a moment.
Nights can be hard for foster kids, but little things like books and new PJs can help a foster child get a good night's sleep and have a chance at a better tomorrow. Help us make a difference. Visit mattressfirmfosterkids.org to make a donation today.
Right after getting my back injured in a car wreck, I lost my job. The insurance company just kept giving me the runaround. It's easy with Montesi. It was time to call attorney Mike Montesi. Mike was just as I hoped to be. Mike got into the insurance company's face. Mike Montesi got me a big check. Mike's a fighter.
Call 526-2126.
Honorary Forest Ranger Betty White here, lending a hand to my dear friend Smokey Bear. Because for 75 years, he's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But there's a lot more to say. Like, if you park your car on tall, dry grass, the hot exhaust pipe can start a wildfire. So keep the animals safe, especially the cute shirtless one. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
It's Mattress Firm's year-end sale. Through Tuesday, get a king mattress for the price of a queen and a queen for a twin. Like a Serta Perfect Sleeper, now just $499. But don't wait, these deals end Tuesday. Your budget stretches further at Mattress Firm.
City and the suburbs to the TVA's Take It or Leave It deal to Memphis. We've got it all covered. Local 24 this week. Now twice on Sundays at 9 a.m. and 10:35 p.m.
He's a veteran journalist with over 43 years of experience. Former managing editor of the Commercial Appeal, a member of the Tennessee Journalism Hall of Fame. Otis Sanford, now with Richard Ransom and Katina Rankin. Get his point of view. Weeknights on Local 24 News at 5. You're watching Local 24 this week with Richard Ransom.
Back with our second segment here on Local 24 this week with Tawan Stout Mitchell, Sam Hardiman, and Otis Sanford talking about the inauguration speech of Mayor Jim Strickland, which seemed to get a lot of positive response. The mayor showing, as he promised, some new initiatives in the second term. The one getting probably the most attention was his initiative calling for a public service corps. We're going to break down basically what it is going to mean. First, it's going to start out in a pilot phase in which 25 people will work for $12 an hour to pick up litter around town. They must complete their high school diploma as a part of this. He points out a number, more than 100,000 of the 600 and so thousand Memphians don't have their high school diploma. And the goal is that eventually hundreds will take part, and this will help a long problem that the city has dealt with. In fact, we'll lift a quote from Strickland's speech. He said, "Our young people are not a lost cause. Our young people are our most precious asset. If we want the decade to be one of promise and opportunity, we must reach out to those who are isolated or disconnected from opportunity." Tawana, I'll let you have the first crack at this one. What do you think?
Well, I think you have to start somewhere. You know, did it thrill me that we were talking about sanitation jobs or picking up litter? No, but I also am a realist. If you have no skills, if you have no high school diploma, there are very few job opportunities. What I did like about his plan was that it offered you a way to get a high school diploma, and it offered you some job training and some job experience so you can branch off into other things. And I would hope that in time the program would expand to include entrepreneurship and apprenticeships so people can find skills and trades that they dream of employing for themselves rather than something you gave me to do. I believe in setting a fire with an individual so he can select some things that he feels like he's good at. But you gotta start somewhere. And I give him kudos for starting somewhere.
Well, Sammy's taking some heat for not doing enough. Cardell Warren, who's a community activist in his Stanford Children Tennessee organization, was pretty much live tweeting as the city was putting out tweets about Strickland's initiative. And he said, among his many tweets, this is one of those cases where the city under Strickland finds something worthwhile to do and then seems to try to figure out what's the least we could do. Fair criticism?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not, here to police whether or not, people should criticize the mayor or shouldn't criticize the mayor. I think that, Cardell will freely admit, he worked for Tammy Sawyer's campaign. He put a lot of effort into Tammy Sawyer's campaign. He's no fan of the mayor. In terms of Strickland announcing the initiative, I think it's too early to tell what the effect of this thing is going to be yet. If it reaches hundreds and hundreds of people and is an effective tool, that could be a big boost for the community. But if we're sitting here at the end of 2020 and 35 people have picked up litter, how effective is that?
Yes.
I think
proof is in the pudding.
That's a good point.
And the city, for example, I was doing some extra reporting today. They don't know what division this is going to be budgeted under yet. So I think that there are details that we still need to see before we have any idea if this is going to work or not.
Another criticism, Otis, is you're going to basically have predominantly African Americans picking up trash. Tuan alluded to it, and Wendy Thomas with MLK 50 kind of touched on that. She said, I'm sure, and sarcastic voice here is intended, I'm sure Strickland's folks designed this program such that it corrects for all of the classist and racist historical echoes present in similar help young people who have largely been thrown away by letting them pick up what society throws away initiatives. Do you have concerns about how that might be?
Well, I mean, I do understand the criticism, and I understand Wendy's criticism, and I applaud Sam here. Sam is a reporter, so he doesn't comment, but I do. I'm a columnist and a commentator, and I agree with Juan here. You have to start somewhere. And yeah, while the optics might not look all that great to just have African-American young men and women out there picking up trash, the incentive here is to give someone who has no skills, has no high school diploma, an opportunity to get that diploma, get some skills. Yes, I would hope that there's also a component on this that helps them aspire to something, even if they have not to this point. Yeah, I think the criticism, while you can make an argument that a mayor deserves to get criticized no matter what, this mayor was elected in a landslide. He has a mandate to lead. And we ought to give him the opportunity to see if this can work. If it turns out in a year or so that there's nothing going on here, then let's do some more criticism. But let's not criticize the cake before it's even baked.
Let me throw this out there, too. I mean, you have an issue, a systemic problem that this city has been dealing with for decades. And it seems like Strickland often gets the blame for not having fixed things, when I can think of several mayors before him who didn't show any kind of initiative like this.
Yeah, and I don't think, I'm a challenge you on that a little bit, because I don't think we should be defensive here. The mayor is in the seat, and we do have a major problem with poverty. And
one that's getting worse.
And one that's getting worse, not better. The momentum is not there for everybody.
Yep. Right.
And so I applaud him for trying to come up with something. Now I challenge us to help him make it better, so it can be more comprehensive. To me, the biggest message in his speech was the fact that only 20 to 25% of our third graders are reading at a proficient level. Right. And that is scary, because you're going to have more dropouts. And if we don't find a way to deal with that as a community, his 25 jobs, we won't be talking about that. We'll be talking about the crime rate, and we need to deal with that too. So I give him props for starting something, but I do think whether other mayors did it or not, he is in the seat now.
True.
And he has a responsibility, and he took the oath of office and asked for this job. So I want you to do the job, and I want us to give him reasonable suggestions on how we can expand the program so it will fit the need.
The early childhood education piece and the illiteracy piece was a key part of this.
Right.
So, I mean, while we spend all the time talking about the Public Service Corps, we should be talking about this early childhood education piece. He has put some money in there. That will yield better results down the line, and so nobody's talking about that. And we should be talking much more.
What was notable about the mayor's speech, I think, as you know, you noted, Tawana, about momentum. And the mayor didn't talk, like that's his punchline, that's his catchphrase, whatever you want to call it. He rode that to an overwhelming re-election, as Otis said. He may have mentioned that in his speech, but it was not stressed. What was stressed in the speech were the issues facing the city of Memphis with childhood literacy, with opportunity youth, those, 18 to 24 who don't have a job and don't have a degree, aren't in school. And, it seemed to me that the mayor had a little more urgency than maybe he's ever shown publicly to this point about the issues of the city. He's a term-limited mayor. And if he doesn't move these needles, that we just talked about, the poverty, particularly the childhood poverty, if that doesn't see anything, what can he do about those things is up in the air. But if they don't move at all, he'll be judged by that as much as he'll be judged probably by the buildings in the sky.
And I think any mayor would want his legacy to include some of that stuff too. And he could have gone on and on and on about the litany of things that are going right about the city right now. So I guess there's...
Which he did last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he went on and on last year.
Yes, he did. Yes.
But it suggests to me that he wants his legacy to speak to something, and I'm glad to hear that, because he could have just ridden that coattail of everybody has momentum because all these big nice buildings are coming. But unless you're building lives and building people so we can expand our tax base, Memphis won't grow.
All right, we're going to leave it there. When we come back, we'll talk about the TVA, which basically said to Memphis this week in an article that this young man here did, you've got our offer, you going to take it or not? We'll be right back.
Scammers have Tennessee's number. Tennessee has the 5th highest rate of fraud in the nation. Scammers want your personal information, your banking information, and your identity.
It's time to put a stop to scams in Tennessee.
Never give personal information to people you don't know. Use strong passwords when shopping online. Always check your bank and credit card statements and review charges. If you've been the victim of identity theft, report it immediately to local law enforcement and the 3 credit bureaus. Scams stop here. To learn scam fighting tips or to file a complaint, contact us at tn.gov/commerce/scams.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows? Maybe life is looking for us, too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Jessica, we need to leave right now.
I need to get something.
There's a meaning no one knows. Waiting to be set free.
So what's the empty suitcase for?
The grand prize trophy. Confidence. Pass it on.
I was born to be somebody.
Local 24 Sports. Nobody covers your team like our team. You're watching Local 24 this week with Richard Ransom.
Well, if Memphis had any hopes that it might get a sweeter deal from TVA as it tries to decide whether it's going to go with a new provider or stay with the energy source it's been using for 80 years, they didn't get much hope from the CEO of TVA. According to an article in the Commercial Appeal that appeared this week, CEO Jeff Lyash said, "We've already put our response on the table. We treat all of our customers in the Tennessee Valley Authority consistently. Anything that we would offer to Memphis, we would have to offer to anyone else." And that's basically the bind they're in, Sam.
Right, and so in a story that I published this week, it's for subscribers only on the Commercial Appeal, so please go, please subscribe.
Support local journalism.
Support local journalism, exactly. TVA pretty much explained that there are first a little background, there are 154 local power companies across, I believe, 6 states that belong to TVA. Memphis is the largest, MLG&W is the largest of those local power companies. It's TVA's largest customer, represented about 11% of its revenue last year. However, TVA is pitching 20-year contracts to the entirety of its footprint and is saying to Memphis, its largest customer, who is studying its options and is geographically suited to go elsewhere, we're not going to up the offer, and any of the inducements or benefits of the relationship you have with TVA, we're not going to put those in writing for you. You have our best offer. You can re-up with your current 5-year contract, or you can take the 20-year contract. If you decide to leave, we're not going to swoop in at the last moment and give you a better deal. And this is hardball, because some people on city council, some people in the Strickland administration have maybe talked in private about, hey, can we use our scale to force TVA to the table to give us what we want? And TVA is saying no, right now at least.
What does that mean, Otis?
Well, I think it means that they're calling Memphis's bluff. I think Memphis is going to have to look seriously at going with somebody else, and I predict that they will, especially if it's true. These studies say that you could save millions of dollars if you do. And at this point, I think there's a public relations component to this as well, and that public relations sentiment is moving away from TVA and exploring other options, and I think that's probably what's going to happen.
$400 million savings potentially is nothing to sneeze at, and that's what what MLGW is looking at, Tawan. That means that'd be a huge boon for this community potentially.
Okay, I want to disclose that my husband works for a contractor, and that contractor has a contract with TVA first. Okay. All right, now let me say this. Memphis has to do what's best for Memphis. But before you jump, you need to be careful that people can sustain the large scale, large volume of customers, and our price. You know, we're flexible with our customers because we are a public utility. So before you jump, just make sure that they can handle what they say they can handle, and they have experience.
I'm sure that will be an issue. I know the nonprofit they keep talking about, MISO, does handle a number of large municipalities, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it for sure.
But do what's best for Memphis.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Winter means fire deaths increase by almost 75% across Tennessee. This winter, stay warm and safe with help from the Tennessee State Fire Marshal's Office and your local fire department. Keep flammable items like blankets or furniture at least 3 feet away from space heaters and wood stoves. Practice a home fire escape plan with your family. Everyone should know 2 ways out of each room. Never smoke in a home where medical oxygen is present. The increased presence of oxygen in the air makes fire burn hotter and faster. Since 2012, our partners have distributed over 200,000 smoke alarms through our Get Alarm Tennessee program. Over 270 people have been alerted by alarms installed through the program. Need working smoke alarms? Contact your local fire department and ask if they participate in Get Alarm Tennessee.
I need to get rid of some hair. Oh, man. What do you think? Shorter, please. Shorter.
I will stand by you. I will help you through. When you've done all you can do, you can
being there. Pass it on.
I will dry your eyes.
Ellen's back. And all new with Aquafina. Plus, Mario Lopez is on the mend.
I'm injured. Somehow you managed to keep having children.
That's not broken.
Yeah.
Watch Ellen, Monday at 4 on Local 24.
Potatoes. Ismael? Yes. David.
Over ground zero.
You can see just home after home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to hear from you. The email address is rransom@localmemphis.com, rransom@localmemphis.com. My thanks to my panel. My thanks to you as well for watching. We'll see you next time for Local 24 this week.